A fragile ceasefire, U.S. envoys heading into peace talks, and a warning from Donald Trump that Iran will be blown off the face of the earth if U.S. ships are attacked. Is this a chance, or the spark that could reignite conflict? Tonight, the stakes in the Middle East could not be higher. As U.S. envoys move toward fresh peace talks with Iran, President Donald Trump
freedom.
And it's working out very nicely. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment, they have no radar.
Clarity that prevents miscalculation at sea. But critics say the language itself could inflame tensions at the very moment diplomacy needs oxygen.
And that tension between deterrence and escalation is exactly what defines this moment. On one side, you have a ceasefire that appears to be holding, barely. On the other, rhetoric that raises the temperature, just as negotiators prepare to sit down. So the question becomes, does strong language stabilize a fragile peace, or does it push both sides closer to a breaking point?
Let's ground this in reality. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most sensitive shipping lanes, with global energy flows passing through it every day. Any threat to U.S. vessels there isn't symbolic. It's strategic, with immediate economic and security consequences. In that context, the president's warning sets a clear red line, which in theory reduces the risk of accidental escalation.
But clarity is not the same as calm. When language escalates to blown off the face of the earth, it doesn't just signal resolve, it signals absolute retaliation. And absolute language leaves very little room for de-escalation if an incident occurs, even a minor one.
Yet ambiguity can be even more dangerous. History shows that unclear red lines invite testing, small probes that can spiral into larger confrontations. A firm statement, however stark, can prevent those tests by removing doubt about consequences.
Or it can create a trap. Because if a red line is crossed, even unintentionally, the pressure to respond exactly as promised becomes immense. That's how incidents at sea, often involving confusion or misidentification, can escalate faster than anyone intended.
Let's not ignore that U.S. envoys are actively pursuing negotiations. This suggests a dual-track approach: strong deterrence on one hand, open diplomacy on the other. The goal may be to negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness.
Dual-track strategies can work, but they require careful calibration. If the deterrent message overwhelms the diplomatic message, it can undermine trust before talks even begin. And trust, however limited, is essential for any agreement to take shape.
Trust, yes, but verification and security come first. The United States has consistently demanded assurances on maritime safety and regional stability. If Iran understands that attacks on shipping will not be tolerated, that could actually create a safer environment for negotiations.
But from Iran's perspective, such statements may be viewed as coercive rather than protective. And coercion rarely produces lasting agreements. It produces compliance at best, resentment at worst. So the tone of engagement matters as much as the terms.
Then let me ask directly, what is the alternative? Should the U.S. soften its stance in a high-risk environment where even a single incident could disrupt global markets? Because restraint without deterrence can be interpreted as vulnerability.
The alternative is precision. Firm but measured language that signals consequences without eliminating diplomatic space. Because when rhetoric becomes absolute, it narrows the pathways to de-escalation at exactly the moment they're needed most.
But we've seen measured language fail in the past. Negotiations stall, incidents occur, and ambiguity leads to miscalculations. Perhaps this time, the administration is choosing to remove any uncertainty altogether.
And perhaps in doing so, it's introducing a different kind of risk. Because when expectations are set at the highest possible level of response, even a minor provocation demands a major reaction. That's a dangerous equation in a volatile region.
Let's also consider domestic factors. Strong statements can reassure allies and signal to domestic audiences that leadership is decisive. In times of uncertainty, that kind of clarity can stabilize confidence at home and abroad.
But they can also polarize opinion. Some will see strength, others will see recklessness. And in a divided political environment, those interpretations can influence how policy is supported or challenged moving forward.
So we're looking at a moment where words carry as much weight as actions. A single phrase can influence markets, diplomacy, and military posture simultaneously. That's the reality of modern geopolitics.
Exactly. And that's why the choice of words matters so deeply. Because in a region already on edge, rhetoric doesn't just describe policy, it shapes it. And once shaped, it becomes harder to reverse without consequences.
So here's the central dilemma. Is this warning a necessary line in the sand that prevents conflict? Or a line so stark that crossing it becomes almost inevitable in a complex environment?
And that dilemma has no easy answer. Because deterrence and escalation often look similar in the moment. They only reveal their true nature over time. What prevents a crisis today could trigger one tomorrow if not handled carefully.
As envoys head into talks and the ceasefire hangs in the balance, the world is watching every word and every move. The outcome will depend not just on what is said, but how it is interpreted on both sides. And in this fragile moment, interpretation can be everything.
Because peace is not just built on agreements, it's built on understanding. And when understanding is strained, even the strongest warnings can become sources of instability. For now, the ceasefire holds. But the question is, for how long?